Good evening, you're watching London Live News at 6 with James Dickman. Coming up tonight, holidays oversold. The government accuses the tourism industry of creating chaos at airports as more flights leaving the capital are cancelled. Ahead of the 5th anniversary of Grenfell, survivors still have seeds of anger, according to the mother of one of the victims. We'll have London's Jubilee weekend weather in the next 10 minutes. Also on the way this evening, the Mayor urges London to stand in solidarity with all LGBTQ plus people as Pride Month gets underway. We'll be looking at one of the first events celebrating the community. And on the eve of the Jubilee long weekend, we'll run you through the events taking place in the capital day by day. First tonight, the government has accused the tourism industry of cashing in but not being prepared as problems continued at airports across the capital and beyond. Dozens of flights were cancelled again today by BA and EasyJet at Heathrow and Gatwick. The Transport Secretary has accused operators of overselling flights and holidays. Airlines UK, which represents the major British airlines, said the vast majority of flights would be operating as scheduled. There is a warning to expect long queues at terminals over the Jubilee weekend, with as many as 2 million people flying in the next few days. Well, the Deputy Prime Minister, Dominic Raab, says companies must resolve recruitment problems.
Well, we'll work with the sector, but it's ultimately it is up to the aviation and the holiday sector to make sure that they've got the staff in place. If there are smart things we can do with the recruitment, then of course we want to work together with them. We want to facilitate those holidays. We want to make sure people can do them, but ultimately it's up to those businesses to respond to their demand. And frankly, the advice has been there for months now from the Transport Secretary to deal with those recruitment issues. So fundamentally, I think what I'm saying is the responsibility is on them.
The Deputy PM there. Some other stories from London today. West Ham's Kurt Zouma has been ordered to carry out 180 hours of community service and has been banned from keeping cats for 5 years. The defender pleaded guilty at Thames Magistrates Court last week to 2 counts of causing unnecessary suffering to a cat. The video of the 27-year-old kicking the animal went viral in February this year. His 2 Bengal male cats have since been signed over to be rehomed. The court heard that Zouma had lost a substantial sponsorship deal with Adidas and had no longer been picked for the France national team since the footage emerged. The Met Police is prosecuting 4 people for allegedly breaking COVID lockdown rules at the vigil for murdered marketing executive Sarah Everard. Hundreds of people gathered at the bandstand for a vigil on Clapham Common on the 13th of March last year after Ms Everard was kidnapped, raped and murdered by a serving Met Police officer, Wayne Cousins. Organisers were threatened prior to the event with £10,000 fines if they attended due to restrictions on gatherings at the time. Well, it took place anyway, sparking ugly scenes where some protesters were pinned to the ground by police. In March this year, the High Court ruled that the force had breached the rights of freedom of speech and assembly by blocking the Reclaim These Streets organised vigil. Now, an artist whose daughter survived the Grenfell Tower fire says those affected by the disaster still have seeds of anger. This year marks the 5th anniversary of the tragedy in which 72 people lost their lives. Tuesday, Greenridge has been running sewing sessions with victims and their families as a form of therapy. She has now unveiled the memorial quilt at North Kensington Library.
Jessica used to go to the same school as my bonus granddaughter, as I call her. So she lost, I think, I can't exactly remember, but 7 or 11 children in that school. And she's special to me because my bonus granddaughter actually passed away 2 years after for other illness.
I'm sorry, Scott.
Bless you. And I swear that it was a broken heart. From what I gather, they find comfort, reassurance that they're not being forgotten, because they're reminded of that every minute of every day, you know. With the inquest going on, etc., etc., this year's really, really difficult for them, because there's nothing's being done, and cladding's still being put on buildings, and that's why a lot of us are, have like little seeds of anger, That's why I create, so I can process those emotions. So I just didn't want, I just didn't want to be involved in any of the form filling. I just wanted to get on and, just be the aim was to just be like a hub where people could come and release and express their emotions through creating, through colour. I know what I get from colour, being an artist, and there's something mystical, magical, seeing all of it blend together. I just wanted them to absorb that energy, that is, to remind them that there are people in the community that love you all, support you all, and we're not going to go away. I just, quietly observe how it impacts my daughter. She's going through her own journey at the moment. She's just had a new baby. He's 9 months old now, so, that's really helping her. She doesn't talk about it that often. So, there was for quite a few days after she had a fixed stare like that. It was just, that's just quietly observing and just doing, just being. All Westminster libraries are going to have hearts that have been cut out where people can write their messages on, and we will embroider the messages. So, and a collection box for them to donate fabric. That's going to be in 12 Westminster libraries and 6 Kensington and Chelsea libraries.
There we go, ways there in which you can contribute to that memorial quilt, parts of which are going on display across libraries in Westminster later this month to mark the 5th anniversary of the Grenfell Tower disaster. Some other headlines for you now. Proposals on reshaping the central and inner London bus network have been outlined by Transport for London, which could see nearly 80 routes axed. It comes because the government are asking TfL to reduce service levels on London's bus network by 4% due to the dire financial black hole TfL is in, caused by the pandemic. The reduction is a condition of further emergency funding. Well, the result of a 6-week consultation on 78 of the 620 routes could see hundreds of buses removed from service. Sadiq Khan and Hillary Clinton are urging cities and businesses to take a lead on global challenges, including fighting climate change and health inequalities. The Mayor and former US Secretary of State held a special event in London for leaders from businesses and government on what is the 6th month anniversary of Sadiq becoming chair of the C40 Cities, which is a coalition of 97 cities around the world. The Mayor has pledged London will lead the way in achieving climate justice for the global south. Londoners have been warned to check their journeys before they travel, as huge crowds are expected as we head towards the 4-day Queen's Platinum Jubilee celebrations. There will be road closures and some stations will be shut in a bid to manage the large numbers of people travelling through the city. TfL will be hoping the new Elizabeth line, named in the Queen's honour, will be able to take some of the strain, and it will run on Sunday for the first time. Services will be particularly busy on Saturday, bosses have also warned. And a reminder that strike action is expected on the Tube network the Monday after. Well, let's have a quick check on the weather for this long weekend. Dry this evening with overnight lows of around 10 degrees. The start of the bank holiday looks fine and dry and feeling quite warm, highs of around 20 or sort of 21 on Thursday and Friday, perhaps slightly fresher on Saturday though, with a risk of some patchy showers around on Sunday. Now let's just take a look at this before we head into a break. The Prince of Wales and the Duchess of Cornwall are set to star in an EastEnders Jubilee special to toast the Queen's 70 years on the throne. The royals will star as themselves in the upcoming episode, and we'll see them join the residents of Albert Square celebrating the occasion with a street party. Well, let's take a look.
Before you leave, Mum, can I interest you in a little?
You can.
There you go, scenes from the market in Albert Square there, still to come before 6:30 this evening. An alternative Football World Cup with an aim of saving lives. We'll speak to the man behind the tournament that has raised thousands of pounds for charity.
From breaking news to headline events, the latest trends and places to be.
You can now keep up to date on daily life in London across London Live's social platforms.
Start the day with an update on the travel and weather, and know what's on around the city and what's being seen by others.
With stories from London Live's team of reporters and your videos of the news moments that matter.
Minute by minute. That's London Live News on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram and more.
Find us at London Live. From breaking news to headline events, the latest trends and places to be.
You can now keep up to date on daily life in London across London Live's social platforms.
Start the day with an update on the travel and weather, and know what's on around the city and what's being seen by others.
With stories from London Live's team of reporters and your videos of the news moments that matter.
Minute by minute. That's London Live News on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram and more.
Find us at London Live. From breaking news to headline events, the latest trends and places to be.
You can now keep up to date on daily life in London across London Live's social platforms.
Start the day with an update on the travel and weather, and know what's on around the city and what's being seen by others.
With stories from London Live's team of reporters and your videos of the news moments that matter.
Minute by minute. That's London Live News on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram and more.
Find us at London Live.
Welcome back to London Live News. Let's take a look at some other headlines affecting Londoners today. At least 2 million people in the UK are estimated to be suffering from long COVID. That's according to the Office for National Statistics. Of these, more than 800,000 people said they had first had the virus more than a year ago. Fatigue continues to be the most common symptom, following by shortness of breath, a cough and muscle ache. An 18-year-old man has been charged with terror offences related to extreme Islamist beliefs. Scotland Yard says Matthew King from Essex was arrested by officers on the 18th of May, along with a 17-year-old girl. She remains in custody. And the British Medical Journal has found that violent incidents at GP surgeries have doubled in less than 5 years. Figures from police forces across the UK show more than 1,000 incidents were reported in 2021, up from 586 in 2017, while the chairman of the Royal College of GPs called the findings unacceptable. Now, onto a pretty impressive feat here. £70,000 have now been raised following a charity football tournament last month. The Mental Health World Cup was held at QPR's stadium on the 19th of May, with 250 players taking part in 100 five-a-side matches in just 7 hours. Well, the proceeds will go to the mental health charity Calm and the Disasters Emergency Committee Ukraine Appeal. Well, Hebe spoke to the event organiser to get the background on the event.
I started the Mental Health World Cup 10 years ago. It started through a tragedy. I lost my youngest brother, who was 26, to suicide. For anyone who's lost someone to suicide, it's quite a frustrating feeling, because you feel like you should have been there to help them, or you should have seen the signs, or you could have stopped them. So I think for me, after my brother passed, I really wanted to try and help another family from going through the same torment we went through as a family. So I decided to try and use football as a channel to try and bring people together, particularly men who take 75% of the suicide deaths per year, to see if we can bring them together and talk about mental health and talk about how we can get them to open up to their feelings and emotions and learn tools to cope with depression. And it started just as a kickabout in the local parks. I was brought up in Tottenham. And in 2012, we had a lot of my brother Lanfranca's friends. And then slowly, we tried to grow the tournament. We wanted to reach a new audience. We got involved with Arsenal in the community. They liked what we were doing. And we spent a few years there trying to reach a new audience. And it was in 2019, we got really lucky with a member from QPR's Community Trust got in touch and wanted to bring our event onto their pitch. And hence, for the last few years, that's where we've been holding it, an annual event. We've just finished our last event last week.
You guys have just raised over 70 grand in your 2022 Cup, which took place at QPR. How did that feel for you to raise that amount of money?
It felt incredible, bowled over by the support. I think when we ran our first event in 2012, I think we've raised about £2,000. My parents were there baking cakes. My brother was, going to the local cash and carry to get the drinks. So I think it's very humbling to sit back and say, wow, over these last 10 years, we've managed to hopefully achieve a lot. And I think for me, that I don't know, that the money is a great thing. I think it's great. Charities and mental health in particular needs a lot of investment at the moment to try and raise the priority. But for me, what was really humbling is the people there who were listening and who we got that message across. One of the key things I was trying to get across in that tournament was this idea of showing vulnerability. I think at the moment there's a lot in the press about checking how people are, to ask that question, hey, how are you doing? But in my experience, and I've worked in this area a lot, whenever I ask that question, most people just say, yeah, I'm fine, I'm all right, how are you doing? I do find that when you open up and you show that bit of vulnerability, that kind of makes it a safe place to talk. And I think that was one of the key messages I wanted to get across this year, was show some vulnerability, and you never know what conversations you might start. A few years ago, I got invited to talk at the UN in Copenhagen, and what was humbling for me is that whilst I've been working in mental health for the last 10 years, I'm only really aware of what's happening in the UK. And the problem around Europe and globally is huge, and especially with things that are going on in Ukraine at the moment, it's only going to get worse. So for me, it's a silent epidemic. It needs the same sort of approach as we did with COVID, of coming together, showing that investment, and saving people from needlessly taking their own lives. I hope the rates go down, because at the moment nothing shows that they are going to decrease anytime soon.
You mentioned there that one of your agendas is to allow people to be more vulnerable. Tell us a bit about the charity behind where the money's going for the tournament, and what they stand for and what they're promoting.
Yeah, so a large proportion of it goes to CALM, the campaign against living miserably. So we decided to work with them in 2012, just because at the time, I think suicide, and still is, I guess, continues to be a taboo. And we really liked the work that they were doing on the front line. They were trying to make mental health a bit more engaging. So they were using music, festivals, sport, comedy. They were just approaching it very differently to how other institutions at the time were trying to talk about mental health. So yeah, the money we raise, a large proportion of it goes to their front line, to the call centre that is open all the time to help people when they need someone to talk to. And we also donate some of it to QPR Community Trust, who do a lot of work in the local community around mental health. And this year, because of the things that's been happening in Ukraine, we decided to donate 10% of all of our profits to the DEC as well.
How can people get involved in, the tournament's just been, but the 2023 one, and also how can people donate?
So if you go to our website, www.mentalhealthworldcup.org.uk, you can sign up and show your interest for next year. That's the way to get the latest information about when we release the teams for 2023. In terms of donate, there's a donate button on there, so please go to the website, donate whatever you think you can to help us with our cause. And yeah, I think it's just going to keep growing. It's open to everyone. We love that. Yes, we have got corporates there who are sponsoring teams, but we also have this open to the public, so anyone can register interest in a team. And it's really just trying to get people together, talking about mental health, raising as much money as we can in a day, and who knows where it will go.
Now, staying with fundraising, young Londoners are being encouraged to complete a marathon during the month of June in honour of their grandparents. The challenge is being organised by Marathon Kids UK as it coincides with the Queen's Jubilee celebrations. Well, Hebe spoke to the charity's managing director.
We decided that for the Queen's Jubilee, we wanted to give a challenge to all of our users and maybe try and reach with some new audiences that we haven't met just yet. The challenge starts on the 1st of June, and we're challenging children all across the UK to walk, run, hop, skip the distance of a marathon with their grandparents or in memory of them. And I guess the main reason we wanted to do this was because we realized that for a couple of years with COVID and a lot of separation from family and friends, that maybe now is the time to get back outdoors and do something active as a family, reconnect children with their grandparents and do something really positive. The challenge, as I said, starts on the 1st of June, and you have until midnight on the 30th of June for all of those people who like to cram things in last minute. So yeah, we've given quite a period of space and time to do that. Once you complete the challenge, we will send out a nice marathon medal. That's for children or for grandparents or for anyone who takes part. And we ask to take part in the challenge to donate £2.62, and then that'll get you signed up. And you can do that through our Just Giving pages.
So tell us what Marathon Kids does.
So Marathon Kids, we've been around for 11 years. We set up as Kids Run Free and started trading as Marathon Kids in 2019. We have a program that we do in schools and parks across the UK, and we challenge children in schools to complete 4 marathons. and they do that by running, walking, skipping laps of the playground, and every so often they achieve certificates, stickers, medals, and we try and use them rewards to motivate them and keep them going. Our big mission at the moment is to try and reduce childhood obesity and to increase the mental health of young people, because we know that's been a real difficulty, I suppose, since COVID in particular and during COVID, but it's something that's been going on for quite a long time now as well. So we're quite keen to give back and try and change that. I suppose as a knock-on effect, mental health is really important too, so that we're trying to get kids who maybe don't feel like they're sporty or, maybe don't particularly like being active. We get them to start by walking, by skipping, by playing and having fun. And then all of a sudden, once they start achieving those distances, they do become more confident. Then they do start to try sports, and then they're more set up for life and they can be physically active for longer.
In terms of children around the capital participating, how many are we seeing coming forward and getting involved?
Yeah, so I suppose in particularly in London, we have quite a few schools on the programme. And initially we set up to do primary schools, but we've been very fortunate that now we have some secondary schools, some SEND schools, and even as little as nurseries, which you can imagine is amazing to see some 2, 3, 4-year-olds trying to complete marathons, which, is fantastic to watch them do that over the course of a year. And then we also have a couple of park locations down there. So we have families from different areas of London coming along to take part as well and clock up the miles and make their way to a marathon too.
There you go. You're watching London Live News with James Dickman. A reminder of our top story is coming up after the break. Plus, The Wanted's Max George speaks to us 2 months after the death of his bandmate Tom Parker and recalls his fondest moments he shared with his best friend.
From breaking news to headline events, the latest trends and places to be.
You can now keep up to date on daily life in London across London Live's social platforms.
Start the day with an update on the travel and weather, and know what's on around the city and what's being seen by others.
With stories from London Live's team of reporters and your videos of the news moments that matter.
Minute by minute. That's London Live News on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram and more.
Find us at London Live. From breaking news to headline events, the latest trends and places to be.
You can now keep up to date on daily life in London across London Live's social platforms.
Start the day with an update on the travel and weather, and know what's on around the city and what's being seen by others.
With stories from London Live's team of reporters and your videos of the news moments that matter.
Minute by minute. That's London Live News on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram and more.
Find us at London Live. From breaking news to headline events, the latest trends and places to be.
You can now keep up to date on daily life in London across London Live's social platforms.
Start the day with an update on the travel and weather, and know what's on around the city and what's being seen by others.
With stories from London Live's team of reporters and your videos of the news moments that matter.
Minute by minute. That's London Live News on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram and more.
Find us at London Live.
Welcome back to London Live News. Let's just have a reminder of some of our main headlines from this evening. The government has accused the tourism industry of cashing in but not being prepared as problems continued at airports across the capital and beyond. Dozens of flights were cancelled again today by BA and EasyJet at Heathrow and Gatwick. West Ham United defender Kurt Zouma has been sentenced to 180 hours of community service and banned from having a cat for 5 years for kicking it in footage that emerged and went viral on social media earlier this year. The 27-year-old pleaded guilty to 2 counts of causing unnecessary suffering to a cat. And the Met Police is prosecuting 4 people for allegedly breaking COVID lockdown rules at the vigil for Sarah Everard, who was murdered by PC Wayne Couzens in 2021. Hundreds gathered for a vigil despite police threatening those attending with fines for breaking regulations at the time. The High Court ruled earlier this year that protesters had had their rights infringed upon by the Met that evening. Now, the Wanted singer Max George says his proudest moment he shared with his best friend Tom Parker was when they found out they had reached #1 together for the first time. His bandmate died in March from brain cancer at the age of 33. Well, Max spoke to us ahead of a National Day of Thanks tomorrow to NHS staff and carers, having himself received care for his own mental health struggles. He joined me earlier.
Yeah, it's O2 have partnered with Concert for Carers, and they're giving the opportunity for NHS workers, whoever works for the NHS can apply for tickets to go and watch some of the favourite artists. I know Liam Gallagher, a lot of NHS workers went to see him, and also Billie Eilish was another one. And it's going to be an ongoing thing, and it's not just, I think when you hear O2, you think of the O2 Arena in London. This is going to be all over the country, and it's going to be an ongoing thing. It's not like a one-off night. And it's such a nice thing for me to be involved with, because I've witnessed firsthand the work that the NHS does, and it is incredible. Not just personally for myself, but obviously recently with Tom. So I think it's a really close to my heart campaign, and with it being with me being from a musical background as well, it's just such a nice fit.
Yeah, you mentioned Tom there. It's been nearly 2 months, or just over 2 months, since he passed. How are you sort of dealing with that now, and how are you feeling at the moment?
Yeah, I think still just trying to process it all. It's been, it's been a really, really rough 8 weeks, but just trying to focus on doing good things, and like this being one of them. And I've been trying to help promote Tom's book that's out at the moment. So just focusing on stuff that he's doing good, and anything that can help him and his family. It's just trying to focus on stuff, but it's painful, and it's going to be like that for a while, I think.
Tell us a bit about the man himself. What was he like behind closed doors? What did you get to see that perhaps the general public might not have seen? And what are your kind of fondest memories together?
He was a madman, Tom, and everyone knew that. Like, he never slept. He bounced off walls. He was infectious, but the thing I think that people maybe didn't see was how caring he was. He was always there for you if you ever needed anything. He'd always call and just be like, "How are you? How's your nan?" He was just a lovely human being, and I don't know anybody that didn't think the same. He made an impact on so many lives, and even later on, raised so much awareness for glioblastoma, because only 1% of funding goes to that, and I think that the fact that he raised so much money and awareness for that is a testament to him, and his wife Kelsey is still doing that. So I think that's amazing, and anything I can do to help, I certainly will.
Yeah, and what's one of the most impressive things that you hear when dealing with such a tough thing like he was going through? You guys were touring right up until, whilst he knew what was going to happen, and your fans knew as well. Did that make performing and going on stage each night more poignant, or did it make it harder? What was that like?
No, it was definitely more poignant. I think we were all excited to have Tom there and let him have that moment, because if we'd just gone on and not had that moment, then it wouldn't have felt right. It was really, really special, obviously under circumstances that were so difficult, but to see him and see him on there and have the strength and the reaction and the love from the fans and the love that he gave back to them, that's something that I can have forever. And I'll always look back so fondly on that tour. It was so special, and I'm just so happy that he got to do it.
And you mentioned the book that he'll be released posthumously. Did you help him input into that and get his thoughts and feelings across? Because is it documenting his time from sort of the start of the Wanted days, or does it go right back?
No, it goes right back. So it's from start to finish, like from the very beginning of his life and his struggles he had as a child, like with bullying and stuff like that, all the way through, and the way that he had aspirations and he conquered his fears. And yeah, it's a book about triumph, and he talks like right up until the end through all that horrible stuff at the end, but he does it in such a positive way. And yeah, there's some stuff in there that I help with, some stories he'd ask, like, just to touch upon, like, did this really happen? Like, can you remind me of the time that we did this? So yeah, it was nice to be a part of it. Just wish it was in different circumstances.
When you look back on your friendship together, you were best friends and you did so many amazing things. You met Michelle Obama in the White House. That's just ridiculous.
Yeah.
What are your proudest moments together? What do you look back on and say, I was so proud that we knew each other during those periods?
I think the first one that sticks out in my memory would be when we went to #1 with our first single for the first time, because that was like, I mean, no one knew who we were, and it was, we worked really hard up until that point. Me and him had been trying to get into the music industry for about 6 years at that point, and we had nothing. You know, we both lived on sofas for 3 or 4 years, and I think to have done that and achieve that together was such a monumental thing that we did, and to do it as like when we were so close.
Yeah.
You know, we'd really achieved our dream, I guess, and so yeah, that one sticks out for me more than most.
Max George there, paying tribute to the NHS and, of course, his friend Tom. Now, still to come. As Pride Month gets underway, we'll look at one of the first events celebrating LGBTQ+ Londoners and how it could help create the UK's first permanent shelter for the community. Stay with us.
From breaking news to headline events, the latest trends and places to be.
You can now keep up to date on daily life in London across London Live's social platforms.
Start the day with an update on the travel and weather, and know what's on around the city and what's being seen by others.
With stories from London Live's team of reporters and your videos of the news moments that matter.
Minute by minute. That's London Live News on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram and more.
Find us at London Live. From breaking news to headline events, the latest trends and places to be.
You can now keep up to date on daily life in London across London Live's social platforms.
Start the day with an update on the travel and weather, and know what's on around the city and what's being seen by others.
With stories from London Live's team of reporters and your videos of the news moments that matter.
Minute by minute. That's London Live News on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram and more.
Find us at London Live. From breaking news to headline events, the latest trends and places to be.
You can now keep up to date on daily life in London across London Live's social platforms.
Start the day with an update on the travel and weather, and know what's on around the city and what's being seen by others.
With stories from London Live's team of reporters and your videos of the news moments that matter.
Minute by minute. That's London Live News on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram and more.
Find us at London Live.
Welcome back to the final part of this evening's programme. Now, the Mayor has welcomed the start of Pride Month. In a tweet, Sadiq Khan said it was vital that Londoners stood in solidarity with LGBTQ+ people all year round, and not just in June. Well, the next 30 days will see a range of events take place to celebrate the community, culminating in the 50th anniversary of the first Pride March. Well, among the cultural offerings is a new digital exhibition featuring 25 so-called trailblazers from the worlds of music, fashion and art. The project aims to raise funds for the UK's first permanent shelter for LGBTQ+ people. Well, Tanya spoke to the team behind the idea. A warning for some, there are flashing images in this piece.
So we're working with a photographer, Luke Nugent, on the project, and he's creating portraits of 27 people. There's 26 portraits who are kind of leaders from the LGBTIQ plus communities. And then they're going to an animator to be turned into NFTs. And we're working with Palm NFT Studio, who are based in America, and Nifty's platform to have these released as NFTs as well as print portraits.
We set the precedent for who we wanted, and then it became more collaborative as we got into the project and we got excited by people. A remit really was just people who make things happen, trailblazers, people who have a unique spark, who have a great look or really strong idea or ethos that we're drawn to as a company and also as individuals. So there's cultural commentators, there's designers, there's people who've been part of the sort of gay scene as sort of icons and elders for a while, and they've been an inspiration to us. So there's really diverse group of people, but they're all essentially linked by the fact that they are in their own way making something creative happen, and they're doing it independently.
I imagine that this will, generate a certain amount of traction, but also money. Is there a charitable element? I think, Holly, this is where we kind of bring you in as well. The money that's raised, where's that going to go and how's it going to help?
We're the Outside Project. So we're an LGBTQ plus community shelter, centre and domestic abuse refuge. And we work in response to people who, those within the LGBTQ plus community who feel endangered, who are homeless, who are hidden homeless, and feel that they're on the outside of services due to historical and present prejudice in society in their homes.
So how is this money that Jim and Faye and that the wider project are raising, how is that going to help, Holly?
It's going to be really helpful, I guess, especially in our day-to-day running, but also in our push to find a new space. So that's what we're kind of focusing on mainly now, looking on new buildings to expand what we can do and for how many people. So just further our outreach really, and find a new building for. So we have one new building that we're renovating, so it will help us with that. That will be open in the autumn, but so looking to expand buildings and expand our ability to house people and support people generally.
And how does the Jubilee play into this? The timing of when you're releasing it is at a time when we're going to be celebrating 70 years of our Queen. Is there a link there?
Well, yeah, for us there is. We thought this is a great opportunity while everybody's reflecting on the Queen, the leadership of the Queen, Britishness. We wanted to highlight the communities that we've been involved with, and it seemed like a very good opportunity to expand out the idea of what is Britain in this day and age. Who are the leaders? How is it formed? What kind of communities exist here? Because it is very diverse. For us, it was also important to, as well as raise money for the Outside Project, raise awareness for, things that projects like the Outside Project are vital, to solving some of the problems that we face at the moment. And we felt that, during the Jubilee celebrations, these are the kind of things that might be overlooked and people might not highlight or include certain sections of the community or the nation in the celebrations.
Holly, can you tell us a little bit more about, the state there of homelessness within the community, within the LGBTIQ plus community? And do you have any experience of that yourself? And what's the state of it? How much are people struggling, and how much work do we need to do to stop that?
I am a support worker, so yeah, I guess I'm on the ground, and it's kind of my day to day. And as well as doing all of the creative and like sport fun related things, which also is a huge part of the Outside project. But yeah, so I guess yeah, it's a huge and growing problem, and as we know, the kind of hostile environment is just making things more difficult for people as time goes by. There is a huge need for housing, particularly because of the COVID-19 pandemic. I mean, that's just highlighted the situation that was already there for people. So yeah, it is colossal. But I feel like we're very supported by the community and projects like this. It helps us to be like, okay, we're in this all together, I guess.
I mean, I have a lot of love for this country with all its contradictions and difficulties. I think there's still something so brilliant and eccentric and exciting about Britain. So it will be a celebration, but it will be tempered by this awareness that we're in a really difficult time. Cost of living crisis is in full swing, stagflation. We're in a very difficult scenario as a nation. So there'll be celebration, but also, yes, a somber reflection on the difficulties we're facing individually and as a society.
Our NFT collection drops on Thursday the 9th of June, so it's just after the bank holiday weekend, so we'll be busy getting ready for that too.
Yeah, we will be partying at some point.
Yeah.
And you can see the digital portrait series from the 9th of this month online on the Temporal Shift website. Right, back to the weekend we have ahead of us. From a royal pageant to a musical extravaganza, there are a huge number of events taking place over the long weekend here in London as the capital prepares for the Jubilee celebrations. And to begin, Alicia is taking us through what you can see and do here in the capital over the next 4 days.
So much going on in the capital over the next few days. You can expect bunting, bake-offs and that famous balcony. Millions of us are taking a moment to celebrate the Queen's 70 years as monarch. If you're wanting to catch a glimpse of the royals or join in on the festivities, here's what you can expect. So tomorrow, kicking off with the Trooping of the Colour, which is starting at 10 a.m. The route goes from Buckingham Palace, along the Mall to Horse Guards Parade, Whitehall and back again. You might struggle to get a spot if you're there too late. Some people have been camping out since yesterday for the best positions along the Mall. At 10:30, we can expect members of the royal family to leave Buckingham Palace for the parade ground, followed by a balcony appearance by key royals to watch the special fly past. Much later on tomorrow at 9:25 in the evening, royals are arriving to watch the lighting of the principal beacon at the palace, a 21-metre Tree of Trees sculpture. That marks the end of the first day. Now on to day 2, Friday at 11 a.m. We'll see the royal family arrive at St Paul's Cathedral for a service of Thanksgiving, which begins at 11:30. Then at around 12:30, when the service ends, members of the royal family are attending a Guildhall reception hosted by the Lord Mayor in the capital. For more to see on Friday afternoon, you could head over to the Tower of London to see the super bloom. 20 million seeds have been planted in the moat to create a spectacular meadow. Or later on, you can see the portraits of the Queen lighting up Marble Arch. Lots of things to do on Friday. Now on to Saturday. Royals are touring the country for the 3rd day. The Duke and Duchess of Cambridge are set to be visiting Cardiff Castle. Then at 4:30 in the afternoon, the Epsom Derby is taking place. The Queen's no longer planning to attend that one, although members of the royal family are expected to be there. A guard of honour made up of 40 of the Queen's past and present jockeys is due to line the course. And then at 8 o'clock, the open-air show in front of the palace is kicking off, featuring stars including Queen and Adam Lambert, Duran Duran and Diana Ross. Now, for the final day of the Jubilee celebrations on Sunday, the day of the street party. big Jubilee lunches are set to be staged across the capital and the rest of the country. Then from 2:30 to 5 p.m, the Jubilee pageant is taking place in central London with a 3-kilometre carnival procession featuring a cast of thousands, including puppets, celebrities and tributes to the 7 decades of the Queen's reign. Rehearsals for the event took place earlier this week, and it will move from Horse Guards along Whitehall to Admiralty Arch and down the Mall to the Palace. Then the finale will feature Ed Sheeran performing and singing the national anthem in front of the Queen's official residence. And that will draw a close to proceedings. Plenty for us all to look forward to over the next few days. Don't forget to follow us over on our social channels at London Live and let us know how you're going to be celebrating.
Well, let's take a look at how the weather stands for the bank holiday. Dry this evening with overnight lows of around 10 degrees. The start of the Jubilee celebrations looks fine and dry and feeling quite warm, highs of 20 or sort of 21 on Thursday and Friday. Perhaps slightly fresher on Saturday with a risk of some showers by Sunday. Well, that's all from the news team this evening. We'll be back at 6 a.m. on Saturday and Sunday with London Weekend as the capital marks the Platinum Weekend. Good night.